Hello, my name is Dave, and this is my first video in the series on introducing programming in Java. Programming in Java. And let's see, I like to think that when I'm programming, that it's sort of like learning a game. And when I learn a game, I have the rules of my game, and that might include things like, what game pieces my board game comes with, or what buttons to press on the controller, or what chess piece is allowed to move where. In addition to having my rules, I have strategy, right? Because if I know the rules really well, then I can play this game, and when I play, I won't make any illegal moves or anything like that, but that doesn't guarantee I'll be any good at it, right? I can learn the rules of chess in maybe 20 minutes, but it will take me a lifetime to master it and get good at it. Maybe I'll never be all that good at chess. So far I am. So far I'm not. Anyway, so we have rules and strategy. What does this have to do with programming? Well, in programming, most of what I'm going to show you are rules. These are the rules of the Java programming language. These are things like what you type when you want the computer to do something, and what it does when you type that thing. Strategy, on the other hand, is going to be things like, how do I make the computer do what I want? How do I program the computer to do what I want? And that's going to take years, certainly many, many programming hours to master. Therefore, as you watch these videos, you're going to see me introduce a lot of the rules of Java programming and in programming in general, and you're going to see me model some problem-solving strategies. But the only way that you're going to get good at programming is if you write a lot of programs, if you practice the techniques you see here, if you challenge yourself to solve problems that interest you. So there's only so much you can learn from simply watching, although hopefully we'll certainly make a wonderful reference. Anyway, let's dive in and see what programming is all about. So, today we are going to introduce a little micro world concerning a robot. And there are several things we can ask our little robot to do, and we'll program that robot to do these things in just a moment. One thing I can ask my robot to do is move. Another thing I can ask is I can ask the robot to turn to the left, and I can ask the robot to make a cell dark, and I can ask the robot to make the cell it's in light. And one other thing, and I don't know that I consider this part of the list of things I can ask the robot to do, but I'm certainly going to need to do it, is that I can actually load a particular world. And when I load that world, so this is really the name of some robot map file. So let's see that in action. Here, here's my prompt, and we'll talk about how you can do this on your own. But first, I just want to try this out. So let's try loading a world, and I have a world called maze.txt. That's a text file apparently that describes a maze with a robot in it. And when I execute that, oh, that's too big, we get a world with a robot in it. And it looks like my robot is up here and it's facing south. And I'm going to see if I can steer my robot so that it solves this maze by getting all the way over to this dark spot at the end. But first, let's just get a feel for what I can ask my robot to do. And actually, this would be a good time to point out that the things I can ask my robot to do, that this whole idea of controlling a robot is based on something called Carol Robot, or Carol J Robot, or Carl the Robot, or Monty Carl, or something like that, depending on which version you're using. And although we're going to be using my own personal version of this, and it's going to differ slightly from what you'll find if you look up this Carol Robot, you're certainly welcome to look that up, and you'll find there's books and free software for working with programming a robot in this way, and we want to make sure we give credit to the people who created this idea. Alright, so let's try it out. I said I could ask the robot to move. We might be curious, why do we have to write a period here? Why is robot capital, but the other letters are lowercase? Why these parentheses? Why this semicolon? And all of those questions will be answered eventually. But for now, we're just going to take it on faith that this is the punctuation. This is the syntax. In fact, that's an important word. I'm going to write that down. This is the syntax. So what you type is the syntax. Okay, now let's see. So let's see. I told it to move, and it moved one cell down. Let's try that again. Move. There it goes. Move. That's lovely. Let's try that turn left instruction. And yes, apparently that L has to be capitalized. We're going to see that's part of the Java naming convention. Turn left. There it goes. You see the robot turning 90 degrees to the left whenever I do that. So what else could we do? We can tell it make dark. And hopefully you can see that that cell is now darker. Maybe if I move out of the way, you can see that that cell is perhaps a little darker than the others. Let's see. See there, that cell is clearly darker than the others. And of course, if we can do that, we can, not only can we make a cell dark, so notice the cell I'm in just became dark, but I can also make the cell light. And now it goes back to being this lighter shade. And that's everything I can ask my robot to do. And, or at least for now. So the task at hand is, actually, I want to get a better sense for some of these things. What happens if I try moving into a wall? So we'll turn so we're facing a wall, and we'll move into it. And when I do that, you see this error message. Let me see if I'll put the whole thing on the screen. It says, attempted to move the robot from 10 to occupied location 11, and then it tells us a line number where that error occurred. We'll learn to use that soon enough. But I attempted to move the robot from 10 to an occupied location 11, and if I look at my world, I see that sure enough, here's my robot in, apparently this is row 0, row 1, column 0, row 1, column 0, and I tried to move him into row 1, column 1, which is over here, and that location is occupied by one of these walls, and therefore I got this error message. So when I move, I can crash. That's something I'm going to need to have to remember. What happens if I make this cell dark, and then I try to make it dark again? And we can think about all sorts of things that might happen. Maybe it does nothing. Maybe it makes this cell darker. But in fact, it crashes. It gives me an error message, and it says, although this is off the screen, here we go. It says that location is already dark. So we can't make a cell dark if it's already dark. And likewise, we can make it light now, but if I try to make it light again, I'm going to see the error message, and it's going to say that that cell's already light. Okay, so some things to watch out for. Let's see if we can summarize what these instructions do, and in the next video we'll actually command the robot to do something that we consider maybe more useful. So move advances one cell, or one square, maybe a square is a better thought, one square in the direction that the robot is facing, and error if moves into a wall or off the edge. And I should show you that it really is the case. So we'll go back to my robot, and this time we'll ask it to turn and face the other direction and move. And sure enough, I attempted to move from that location to an invalid location, and it's invalid because it's off the edge of the board. Alright, so when I turn left, well, that rotates robot 90 degrees to the left. What is that? That's counterclockwise. Make that fit on the screen. And it turns out turn left, there's nothing that can go wrong if I turn left. Make dark, that makes the current square dark, and I get an error, or it crashes. Those are synonymous terms. I get an error if it's already dark. Make light, that makes my current square light, and I get an error if it's already light. And then we saw when I load, it actually loaded that world, and we'll see me loading some other worlds as we explore programming using the robot. I'll see you in the next video.